All right, welcome back to the channel. So, Regis Prograis pretty much slams Danny Garcia and says he beats him way worse than Errol Spence Jr. did, beats him very easily. Now, why is this significant? Because this is two of the most popular American fighters, and they are in a position to be able to, in this new boxing economy, make a whole lot of money on fights that just a few years ago would have been disregarded. But let's talk about this let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, we get to talk about two of my favorite fighters, absolutely terrific fighters, guys that had both been, best of the, two of the best guys in the last, I have to say, last 15, 16 years in the 140, between the 140 and 147 pound divisions. And that is Regis Prograis. If you're not familiar with what Rougarou is a Cajun werewolf, I do believe, even though I think he'd have to be Creole and not Cajun. But regardless, it's a werewolf from Louisiana. I am a big fan of Regis Prograis. He went to a high school called St. Augustine in New Orleans. Had a lot of really good friends that wore that purple and gold down at that school. I actually had him on my channel earlier in his career before he really blossomed into, the terrific highlight type of fighter that he is now and that everybody knows that he is. But he was asked about Danny Garcia. I think this was on an interview that I read on Boxing Insider, and he was asked about what he thought about Danny Garcia and what Danny Garcia looked like against Errol Spence Jr. Now, I find that really interesting because I was actually at the fight and I bought, I bought tickets to that event, and I went there specifically to see what Regis Prograis was going to look like and to see Errol Spence Jr. So for me, it was like a 2-for-1. And I was just, oh my God, man, I was so excited to see those guys. I actually was able to walk by Regis Prograis' mother and her what do you call it? The person that was accompanying her. I'm not sure if that was his father-in-law or if it was a friend of the family, but absolutely beautiful mother, beautiful family. I met his wife before via email when to arrange the time that I had him on my channel a few years ago. Just a huge Regis Prograis fan, and I'm absolutely positive that a fight with Danny Garcia would be a mega fight, even if it just had to be something that was on a pay-per-view that went along with, like the second fight before maybe like an Errol Spence Jr. Terrence Crawford fight, but something like that. Terrific fight. Now, Regis Prograis was asked what he thought about Danny Garcia's performance. Now, if obviously you guys are familiar with Danny Garcia is a guy, in my opinion, that is going to be in the Hall of Fame. If I had a vote, he would definitely be in the Hall of Fame for what he did at 140 pounds and for the excellent fights that he's put up in what I think is a golden era in 147 pounds. But he says about Danny Garcia, and let me see if I can get specifically what he said. And this was, of course, again, in Boxing Insider, so more than likely they were quoting another interview, but he said that he thought that Danny Garcia looked good with Errol Spence Jr. But that he was that he didn't look that good, and that Danny Garcia was a really good 140 pounder. He won and he beat a lot of the top fighters that he fought at 140, including obviously Lucas Matisse, guys like Zab Judah. Guys like, who else did Danny Garcia beat? Danny Garcia beat, I think he got a gift against Lamont Peterson. But again, his track record at 140 pounds really just absolutely positively speaks for itself. But Regis Prograis says, look, man, and I can beat this dude at 147 pounds. And he thinks that he beats him more easily than what Errol Spence Jr. was able to do. Now, I was at the fight. I paid for that fight. man, I can't tell you, dude, of all the fights that I paid for in my time as a boxing fan, that fight was one that I'm glad that I put the money up for. You know what I mean? And I would continue to put up money for fights just even like that, because there were guys like Josecito Lopez was on the undercard for that fight. So I got to see Josecito Lopez, got to see Regis Prograis, and got to see Danny Garcia. Absolutely wonderful card with the PBC that they had in Dallas. So, and now when you start seeing all of these guys on the same card, then more than likely that they're going to be able to mix and match these guys. So I'm hoping that that's why Regis Prograis brought Danny Garcia up. But let's actually talk about the fight itself. In the different, we'll look at it like three different ways. We'll look at it, from who's going to win the fight, and then whether or not financially it's something that would make a lot of sense for the fight to be made, and where, and then what does it mean in the grander scheme of things, in the welterweight division and the 140-pound division. Because I think you could consider that too, because you have Josh Taylor and Jose Ramirez that are also eligible to be fighting the winner of these fights. So, as far as the fight itself, I would give the advantage to Regis Prograis, because I think Regis Prograis is the younger, hungrier fighter, and I think that on the inside that he's just a more dynamic fighter. Now, obviously, he doesn't want to get hit, with some of the shots that Danny Garcia has the ability to hit you with. He's going to want to slip those type of shots, especially that hook, right? But also not underestimating the straight right hand. But you would be very, very, surprised at the resilience and the agility of Regis Prograis and the people from New Orleans, just generally speaking, and the way that they conduct those type of shots that are coming in them, no matter what angle they're coming from, and how consistently, they're, that they are, going after them. So, man, love the fight. Have Regis Prograis winning that fight. By a unanimous decision. I agree with what Regis Prograis says, that he might not say that he can knock Danny Garcia out, because, Danny Garcia is just one of those really real rough rider type dudes, from the East Coast, that is going to be there to the very, very end of the fight, fighting tooth and nail, trying to get it done. But I just don't think that he's the talent level of a Regis Prograis, doesn't really have everything that Regis Prograis has. Now, what does it mean financially? This is just it's a huge fight financially. And I've been saying this, and I'm going to continue to harp on this year more than ever, that there is plenty of money in the American economy to support these type of fighters and these type of fights. Whether this fight would take place in New Orleans, Louisiana, but where Regis Prograis, that's where his home base is, or Houston, Texas, which is really now in Houston, the epicenter of boxing in the United States, and consequently the epicenter of boxing in the world. Where they have a lot of consumer interest and they have a lot of money that they are putting into these fights. And you've been able to see that with what's happened with the Charlo brothers in Houston, which you've been able to see with Gervonta Tank Davis in San Antonio, and Canelo Alvarez in San Antonio, Errol Spence Jr. in Dallas, Texas. I think, who else is going to be there? Who else was in Dallas, Texas? Ryan Garcia was in Dallas, Texas. So, just a whole lot of money to be put there. Now, can it be its own standalone fight? It could be, if something that Derek James said, is true, comes to fruition, where there's more investment in a local fights. But more than likely, this is going to have to be, a fight that is alongside maybe a fight like a Sean Porter, Terrence Crawford, if they're able to free themselves up, and kind of be that fight that, seems like maybe almost like a mini tournament, and then one in which I would suspect that Terrence Crawford would come out of the top of, but when he comes out of the top of, he would be a lot closer to a 50-50 type of money that he wants against Errol Spence. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You just let me know what you think in the comment section. I certainly hope that these fights get made and that there's people out there willing to put the money behind it, to make it happen. But anyway, it is what it is. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.